Okay, so last day we have learned the very basics of After Effects, the interface, and how to import footages, how to trim footages, and all those things. So today we are going to start with again working with different parameters of footages that you have already imported in your footage. So let's import some footage in our composition. So we have some files here. And by the way, another way to import footage in After Effects is simply drag and drop. So maybe I will drag this image, maybe this video file, and this file. So I can just drag and drop them here. And after that, I will create a new composition with let's say this footage. This is a little bit colorful footage, so I'm going to use this one. Um, so. Few options like last day have I discussed about all these keys, all these the options that we can use. This is the display option, this is the sound. Like if I now play it back, you can hear the sound. You can turn on and off by using this first button, and if you turn off the sound from here, it will actually not go, it's even not going to render in your final output. So that you need to check in from here. But in rendering, there you're going to get another option that whether to turn off all the sound of the footages in your composition. There, if you turn that on, then even if you have turned off here, that will still render the sound of this footage. Another option, this is the solo. If you have multiple number of footages, you can solo this layer. And then there is locked. If you are finished with the footage, then you can lock it. And after that, we have blending modes and few different parameters like parenting, stretching. And if we go to this option, toggle swatches from mode, this is the mode view. You can go to the swatches. There we are going to get options for frame blending, motion blur, effects, and 3D, to whether to turn on 3D or not. If we have some effect, we can turn on and off all the effects from here. So we are going to check those things later on. Now once you import a footage, then you can see that we have this triangle here, and that is basically you can expand this option and you get to another option which is transform and audio. In audio you get audio levels. You can increase that, decrease from here, and then you get the waveform view. If you turn on the audio, you can see the waveform of your audio, and this is it in the audio. And if you go into the transform, you can see that you have all these values, different transformation values like anchor point, which is the center point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. And there is this reset option. If you make any kind of changes from here, let's say I'm going to scale it up and rotate, and whatever I do, I can hit reset and it will gonna reset the entire thing. And it also creates a keyframe if the keyframe is turned on for all these parameters. You can see for all the parameters we have different keyframes. So to access all these transformation properties of a footage, we have some shortcuts, and mostly you are going to use that, which is called there is very easy way to remember all the shortcuts for transformation of a single layer, which is called traps. Traps means T for transparency. So hit T, select the layer at first, of course. So hit T for transparency, which is the opacity here. R for rotation, A for anchor point, P for position, and S for scale. And you can see here we have this lock icon. That means the horizontal and vertical value for the scale is locked by default. So if you turn it off, then you can actually stretch the footage like this. And also you get, when you select a particular layer, we get this for transformation icon in the edges of the footage, that means we can actually manually also transform the entire footage like this. And if you hold shift, then it's automatically going to lock the height and width. Okay, so let's turn it on. And there is a significant role of shift key in all the transformation, all the transformation of After Effects. Like if you hold shift key, we have seen with the scale, what happens is it's become the horizontal and vertical values become locked. And let's say when you are rotating, so I'm just hitting R to get the rotation. Now you can see there is two options, which is 0x plus something degree. And basically if you want to add some degree, let's say 30, so or whatever it is, you add it here. And this 0 means a complete evolution. Like if you are going to 0 to 360, it becomes one evolution. Okay, so you can just add like 3 evolutions and animate it. Like let's say I'm going to keyframe here, add a keyframe here, and I'm going to add, let's say, 2 evolution, and that means it is going to rotate twice, 2 time before reaching the end keyframe. And the role of shift key here, like if you hit shift key, what happens is when you hold shift and move any parameter, and it moves faster, it moves 10 times than original. Let's say I'm going to move this footage, so we are not seeing any difference because the size of the composition is not that high, but if you hit shift, it moves much more faster. So if there is any value that you need to make a drastic change of, then you can just press the shift key and move that value, I mean change that value. Another thing is for the rotation, let's say I'm going to select the rotation tool, the shortcut is W. If I hit shift and try to if I don't hit shift, you can just freeformly rotate this thing. And but if I hit shift, what is going to happen is it's going to automatically snap to 45-degree angle. Okay, so this is basically basic transformation tools in After Effects. And you can also I hope I have shown you, you can also color code all these different layers for your own convenience. And another thing is let's say we have multiple number of layers here, and now if I select this particular layer and hit R for rotation, we can hit A for anchor point and whatever it is. If you don't select anything in your composition and then hit, let's say, R, then what is going to happen is it's going to open this particular transformation value for all the layers, because it doesn't know which layer I'm specifically I need, so it's going to open it for all of them. And if we hit R again, then it's going to expand collapse this value. So let's say that I have pressed R and I am going to create a keyframe for all I want to create a keyframe for all these 3 values. Then I'm going to select here and drag here. That's how I can create 3 keyframes for these all the 3 different layers. And let's say I want to add a keyframe for this much of, I mean in a particular selection of layers, then I will select these 2 layers and I will hit a keyframe, hit this icon here, and it will create a keyframe for these 2 layers. It can be multiple number of layers, of course, so let's duplicate quite a few times, and let's actually I don't need to do that. I'm going to, so I'm just expanding the view, and I have selected this many frames layers. Now I'm going to hit R and I'm going to create a rotation keyframe for all the values, all the layers. I'm just hit again, and it will create shortcut, create a keyframe for all the selected layers. So this is very useful. And let's say that let's hit control shift Z for the redo, and let's say that we have few keyframes for these layers, few keyframes for other few layers. I'm selecting the same thing. For other few layers I have few other keyframes. Let's say in position I have some keyframe. I'm going to add a keyframe. Maybe I will animate it, and I'm just doing some random stuff. So I have few keyframes here in my composition, right? So let me change them. Now once you have done with the entire thing, now let's say I need to select all the keyframes. So it will be very hard for us now to expand each and everything. Like I know that the shortcut for rotation is R, and it will expand all the things for rotation, but there is keyframes for maybe some effect, maybe some other parameter. So if we need to manipulate all the keyframe for all the different things all together at one time, then there is very useful option. So let's collapse it again. I'm going to hit R again. So that was the rotation. So there is a very useful option to get all the keys, and that is U. Press U once and it will expand all the keyframes for you. Okay, press U once, or U again, then it will collapse again. And let's say I have this many much of layers I have selected, and now if I press U, then it will going to only select this much of this keyframes which in the selection. So this is the use of U. And another thing is, if I press U twice, then what is going to happen is it is going to actually expand all those values. I mean, there is not this, those information are not there, because I have only made few changes only with these layers. So what happens is, if you press U twice, then it is going to expand all the values that you have made any kind of transformation. You haven't pressed make any key, but if you make any kind of change with those values, it's also going to expand them if you hit U twice. So that's the use of the U key in your timeline. And let's start with creating precoms and understanding their uh, behavior, how they works. So I have this example file that I was working with the other batches. So there should be a hopefully this one. Okay, so that open tune character again, and you can see that actually this is not the this is the modified one. If I open this one, and here so here I have all these separate files for. So let's solo this file. This is for the left hand, and the lower arm and the upper arm and all this thing, and all these things are separately I have imported in After Effects. So I'm just, let's make it none, and let's go to the values, and actually there is no value, so I'm going to reset all these values. So you can see I have color coded all the similar things. This is the left arm, this is the right arm, and this is the body, this is the head, this is for the legs and all. So let's delete this thing right now. Now let's say I need to create a all these layers are separated, right? So let's say I need to create a single layer which contains all the 3 layers of the hand. So I'm going to select all these 3 layers. You can solo it to tree check, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a pre-comp out of it. So to do that, you go to composition panel and create layer panel and create pre-composition or pre-comp. The shortcut is Ctrl Shift C, and if I do that, it will ask us to give a rename, give a name, and then there is 2 options. The first one is disabled, which is the leave all attribute. Whether you want to leave all the attributes like effects, like transformation out of the composition, or you want to move all of them into the composition. In this case, we have multiple number of layers, so it's not possible to leave all the attributes outside of the composition. So because all those multiple layers have different type of values. So I'm going to hit OK, and what is going to happen is it will create a new composition new composition layer which contains all these 3 layers. So you can turn on and off to see them, and let's hit Ctrl Z. So let's say I have some effects or anything on this layer. Let's say I have a glow. So I've applied this glow on the hand. Okay, and now if I hit Ctrl Shift C to pre-comp it, and let's call it left hand, then what is going to happen is as I have moved all the attribute in the pre-composition, we don't have anything assigned to this particular pre-comp layer, and if I double click on it, then it will open this pre-comp. It's basically like a folder. So in this pre-comp, I have these 3 layers, and in one of them we have the glow effect. There is another effect which is called simple choker. For some reason I have added it because there was some edge issues, so I needed to fix it. Anyway, so I have that. Now let's say I want to add some key on it. Let's say for the glow intensity, in the first frame I will make it something like this, and after 1 second I will increase it, and I want to make some other changes, like I want to make the position and to change the position. So for this keyframe, for this layer, how to create keys, right? I am coming to that. We are going to have a yes. So once you create one key, the another key creates automatically. It's you don't have to click again. It's similar to OpenTune and after OpenTune and Toon Boom. So once you create one key, the another key created automatically. So now I'm going to go back to the previous composition. Here in this case I have multiple number of compositions, so it's very hard to find that particular composition. Otherwise you can just go to that composition like that. So I'm going to use the tab key that I have shown you earlier. It will take us to the parent composition, and now you can see whatever changes I have made into that pre-comp layer, that information is there here. Okay, but as it's a pre-comp now, so what can we do is we can actually, why do we need to pre-comp a layer? For few reasons. For our convenience, let's say I have so many things in my composition timeline, and multiple number of those things are doing the same thing, and I need to add same effect or same kind of thing over and over again for all of the things, all of the layers, and I don't need to do them if I combine all of them together into one composition. So that is one reason for the convenience, and the second reason is when you need to add certain effect on a particular few layers, you can just pre-comp them, make a pre-comp with them, and then you can add that particular layer. Let's say I'm going to use something like the HLS. I'm going to change the hue saturation values. So like this, I've changed the color, Now I can do that because I have made a pre-composition, and now if I apply it on this hand layer, hand composition layer, and then what is going to happen? It's going to apply all this particular effect to all the layers which contains this pre-composition. So that is one reason why you create pre-compositions, and another reason, like I can create a pre-comp for the other three layers of the other three hand, hand parts. So let's call it right hand, and let's say I want to use another effect on it. Okay, then it will be applied to these layers, and let's say there is some animation into that, like these layers are now parented yet, so I'm going to come to that on later on. So if there was some animation also, you could have seen that. Okay, so let's hit Control Z. So this is why basically you create precoms, and a lot of time you are going to use that, the precoms. And after that, let's see the difference between creating precoms and parenting. There is another thing which is parenting. So that means I can, let's say I want to make change with this layer. Let's say I want to move it like this. Three of the layer I have selected P. I have selected the three layers and I have hit P. So the position value is expanded here, and I am going to make some change like this, and you can see all the three keyframes are getting created at the same time. So I have created this two keyframe. So the same kind of thing is okay. I need to move it again. So, and let's say this is one way to do it. I have to do it for all the layers. Sometimes it is not possible because I am not doing the same kind of animation. And let's say I have created a null which is like peg bar in OpenTool. So I'm going to create a null and I'm going to parent it. I'm going to come to the parenting thing later on. So I'm going to select the parent layer, the null layer, which is now the parent, and now I can move it, and it will do the same thing for us. So I can do the same thing by creating a pre-comp also, right? So if we don't need to keyframe that. So for the right hand, I'm going to create a pre-comp again, and I can just move them like this. So both of the things are doing the same thing. Here I have created a null and I have parented these three child hand layers with the null. So both of the things are doing the same thing, but when you are going to choose which one to do, whether to create a pre-comp to make a single layer, or you want to create a null and make the animation there in the null layer and make all the other layers the child layer, that you will decide. If you make a null layer and move the null, then what happens is all the child layers are in a single composition. So if you need to make some kind of change on them too, you can do that. But once you create a pre-comp layer, you cannot make any changes here on the sub layers, right? Like the upper arm, lower arm, and the hand, you cannot make any change from here because you have created a pre-comp. So to do that, you have to double click and go into that particular layer, and sometimes it is little bit inconvenience because to follow the time and all. So let's go back to this thing. So in that case, you don't create a pre-comp, you just create a null and parent it with the null layer. And but when you are going to create a pre-comp, when you need to add some effect in it, then it is very necessary to get. Now I cannot apply same effect on this multiple number of layers. Yes, I can. I cannot do them at once. I have to apply to that. Maybe there could be 50 different layers, and I have to apply it over and over again manually. So this is basically the difference. This is basically why you create a pre-comp. Now I am going to give you a time to exercise on this thing. Yeah, no. Null layer cannot doesn't contain anything. So there is no visual information in a null layer. Okay, so this is basically what pre-comp is, and another another nature of precomp I need to show you. Let's say I'm going to select all the layers, so I'm going to just hit Control A, then that will select all the layer for us. And now I'm going to hit Control Shift and C, and I'm going to create a precomp. I'm just hitting OK, and it's created a precomp. So entire thing is one single layer now. I can use any effect or anything in it. I can use a if I need to animate the entire thing together, I can do that. I need to use some effect on it, I can do that. Huh? Main composition. This is the main composition. Huh. If I need to add some effect on that, yeah, then I will apply the effect to this precomp. Yes, this precomp. Okay. So now the interesting thing is, let's say I have created duplicate. So now I have two characters. Okay. So now I have two characters. Now I can apply two different effects in it, obviously. So let's change this color and this one too. So you can create background people like this. So so I have two characters now. Now the thing is, but though we have two different precomps, they are sharing the same layers. You have to remember that. That means if I change anything with in the precomp, like this is basically the duplicate of this precomp. So let's go to this precomp and let's change. Let's say let's select the head and let's move it like this. Ganja ban gaya. And then go back to the final precomp, and here you can see the change happens for both of the layers. So this thing you need to remember. If you want to create a separate precomp, then you have to select all the layers and create a new precomp. This is not a new precomp, this is a duplicate precomp. Okay, so if you make any kind of change there, that will happen here. So let's go to the window menu and go to the project flowchart window, and that is actually I can click here. Copy paste where, like if we can duplicate the precomp. This is the if you make any change on the precomp, main precomp, that doesn't affect any other thing. Okay, but these precomps are containing same files. Let's say this is the difference between a folder structure and this thing. Let's say if you are copying a folder which contains XYZ files, then that folder creates a separate copy of those XYZ files if you duplicate the folder. No, I'm saying a folder in Explorer. Then it actually changes, copies the folder that contains in that folder, right? Here it doesn't do that. It just duplicates the precomp, but they are sharing the same files. So it's something like this. If you go to the project flowchart window and expand it, you can see that I have in this precomp, actually, yes, you can see I had multiple number of, I have let's select this chart, 4 things. Okay, let's select these things and drag it like this, and let's expand it. So you can see, I don't know how to zoom out from this view. I have multiple number of files, layers. Here eyeball, iris and all this thing, arm, shirt and all, and I have created a precomp with them. So all of them are into this precomp 1, which is the main character, and then I have made 2 copies of it, and in both of those copies I have added this HLS effect, hue saturation effect, right? And that is on this final composition. So in the final composition I see these 2 files. Keep on doing what? Okay. Yes. So Control D for to duplicate it. Then another copy is created. then again control D, D D D D D. Okay, undo the whole thing. So undoing the whole thing, the effects are getting removed, and then only one this thing. And if I undo this again, then there is no longer that file. Then redo, duplicates, effects on the both of the things, first effect, then second effect. That's it. So this is basically it. Okay, the third and fourth. Huh? Okay. So you understand the structure, right? Huh. Yes, the same thing. This is basically the same thing. Hmm. It's the same thing will happen. So if I yes, yes, huh? But they are actually they are actually sharing all the same files. All of those main those actual files you have to copy all of them, you have to duplicate all of them, matlab copy paste all of them the same thing, and then create a separate precom for them. Here we haven't done that. Inside this precom only you can do that. I'll show the process, but this is basically happens when you duplicate a precom. They both share the same files, just there is a duplicate of that entire thing, entire precom thing. So let's say in another scenario we want to have some two separate files. So this changes I had made there, but I the undo thing. So let's say I want two separate characters. Because I want to add two separate two different animation in both of them. So to do that, what we need to do, this is the thing that we were doing. So I will actually hit Control A to select all of the files. Let's expand the view, and now I will either copy or paste or duplicate. The difference in this thing, like if I duplicate it, then what happens is it will create a duplicate file on top of each and every other file. I'm not going to do that for other convenience. If I do that also, you can just drag and drop like this, and it will going to do the separate thing. Or otherwise, to do it, just Control C and Control V, then it will create all the duplicated files differently. Then what I can do is I can, now the selection is already done here. Now I can hit Control Shift Z to create the first character, let's say precomp 1, and select all the layers for the other character and hit Control G. So now also I have two characters, but they are not sharing the same file. That means if I make any change on precomp 1, it's not going to affect, it's not going to affect the other precomp. So in the schematic we have these two precoms which contains two different precoms or different files. So let's expand it here. So how can I zoom out of this thing? I don't know. Okay, it's just expanding and the scroll is not happening. So there is some navigation that I don't know, might be. Okay, so this is basically it. Okay, so this is the nature of precomposition in After Effects, and so right now we have covered how to create keyframes, how to create composition, and this process that we have just done is called the nesting composition and nesting composition. Yes. And after this thing we are going to cover masking, how to do the masking. So if you guys want to explore this process for a little while, you can do that. Or should I move on to the next thing, which is the masking. After the masking, you have to do some exercise. Exercise, you have to do the exercise because we have plenty of time, because we have the entire module, entire semester for this class, never ended. हाँ ये है ना, हाँ हाँ till the end of the semester. So if we don't do some exercise, it's odorless, because next time you are going to use After Effects, you won't remember anything. You have to. Anyway, you have to sit here till 6 p.m. So yes, we have covered all the other things, right? So if you should I move on to masking? Huh? Yes, also we can do that. Let's say I'm going to cut this one, cut from here. I'm going to go into this precomp, and I'm going to paste it somewhere here. So that kind of thing you can always do. Then we are going to get some messed up flowchart, but that doesn't matter, Okay, that we can do. So this is creating precoms. So let's start with the masking, huh? And after that let's do some exercise. So it's 5:15. So in 15 minutes I should finish the masking. In masking, what kind of, huh? What do you mean by advance? And what is the advance? So that is basic animation, right? Yeah. Okay. The basic first, of course, the basic first. Okay, okay. So you can actually, the keyframe thing is all over the After Effects. I mean, you can create keyframe in anything. So have I covered the basics of keyframe? So let's do that at first. So let's create a new layer, a new composition, and I'm going to create a shape. So let's make it something gray, the background, and I'm going to create a shape, and this is the shape tool. You can create any shape from here, and so let's hit P. So this is the stopwatch icon. If you hit here, you get this diamond icon, which means it's a linear keyframe. And let's right click on the composition settings and add some more, let's say 10 second. You can expand it negative. कहाँ पे है नेगेटिव में? हाँ, that's, you want to trim it, you need to trim it, but you want to keep that information there. Sometimes what happens is you cannot just select all the files together and you cannot move it. That is pointed to some other thing, and that kind of complicated thing is there. Then you can expand something. Okay. So the first keyframe you have created by clicking on this stopwatch icon, and it turned into blue. That means a keyframe has been created, and by default the linear fashion keyframe is the diamond shaped keyframe, and next keyframe we are going to create it class cholche. And now as I have turned on the keyframe here, so if I make any change with this shape layer, and that will create a next new keyframe for us. Obviously that should be the same parameter. So you can see the next keyframe have been created. For the rotation, let's expand all the transformation values. So for the rotation, let's say I want to create the keyframe somewhere here in the middle. So the rotation keyframe is created, and here I'm going to add some rotation like this, and you can see the center is somewhere here. Now if I change the center, you will see that if I change the anchor point, the rotation also actually the anchor point is not changing, the position is changing. That is basically, it's moving the position closer to the middle. So for that I will select the pan behind tool, which is this one. By selecting this tool you can actually change the position of the anchor point, and I'm going to do that. It's very actually you need to change the anchor point before doing the animation, then you are not going to mess up the entire thing. So let's do the same thing. So select selection tool. Now I'm going to move it. I'm going to go somewhere here. I'm going to add some rotation, and now you can see the animation. Now it's obviously a linear animation, so that's why there is no easing and anything. And few more option is here, and that I want to show you guys, which is you can select multiple number of keyframes and you can move them. If I need to stretch the animation, I'm not stretching the values, I'm just changing their position. That means it's becoming faster or slower. You can see all these little dots. This is basically the path that have been created by keyframing the position, and you can see these dots. These are actually each and every position of a particular frame, and you can see like this. So if that means if I select these end keyframes and move closer, then these dots are actually going to get bigger. That means these are traveling a lot of distance in a small duration of time, right? Now if I expand it, that means it's slow. I mean the dots are getting closer, that means it's getting slower. So this is the very basic thing. Right now there is another thing. Let's say I have something complicated. Let's add a keyframe for the scaling here and here also, and in the middle I'm going to scale it up. Maybe I will just squeeze it like this. Sorry. So I have something like this. Maybe I will change the transparency also. So here it's 100% and here also it's 100%. So to create a new keyframe you can also click here, and I'm going to make it something like this. So this is the animation we have. I'm just hitting N to bring this blue end composition work area icon here. Okay, I'm hitting N, yes, B to start, N to end. Those keys are side by side together. So if I hit 0, now first time it's going to load the entire thing in the RAM. So it's actually very slow animation because of the duration. And oh no, because of the because it's by default I have last time I have created a 8 frame per second animation, so that's why it's so slow. I'm going to make it 24, and now you can see that in real-time view. So now let's say the animation is really slow. Now I need to stretch the entire animation into a smaller place, in a smaller duration, but I don't want to mess up the entire animation. Okay, so how can we do that? We are going to expand all the, let's say it's closed, then you are going to hit U to expand all the keyframes. I'm going to do a marquee selection to select all the keyframes, and then I'm going to hold Alt, and if I hold Alt and the very last keyframe and click and drag, it will going to stretch the entire animation proportionally. So now I'm going to play back only this much of the animation. You can see it's there. And also you can select all the keyframes and move it in the timeline, and the animation is basically going to, now we have a hold, now it's starting and ending here, and we can see multiple number of keyframes. so you can move that also. And hmm, hmm, लूप करना है, फ्रेम के साथ मतलब लूप करना है। हम्म, हाँ हाँ हाँ, एक ही जगह पे लाना है ना, देन इट स्नैप हो जाएगा। लाइक वी कैन मूव देम इंडिविजुअली, और इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग, हाँ, दिस इज द जूम इन फॉर जूमिंग ऑल्ट एंड स्क्रॉल व्हील और फ्रॉम हियर। If we don't move them individually, you can select all of them and we can just, this snapping option is always there. Hmm. And let's do the same thing here. And now what we are going to do is, I'm going to copy these keyframes from here. To create a loop, I'm going to copy the first set of keyframes, and paste it here. Maybe this middle keyframes also I'm going to copy, Control C and Control V here. Then we have a loop, so I'm going to again I'm holding shift. If I hit shift and click here, then it will snap to this position. So I'm holding shift, it will snap like this. So now hit N to end the work area, and now if I hit this, so sarcastic guava, then uske baad, so this is very basic of keyframes. So that's all, let's say that's all. ठीक है, sorry again. हाँ, same thing is going to happen. This length is changing, yes. हाँ, that's a different thing. You can do the same thing with this. Like if you select the entire thing now also, and you can change the time slot. That you can do anytime. Not only the entire thing. I can select these few things and I can stretch them like this. You can see the middle keyframes are getting. Huh? Hmm. Hmm. The same thing actually. Let's bring a footage. Let's bring a footage here. So this is a footage from my films. So if I actually let's copy the entire values from this layer to this layer. So you can see it's going to happen for that layer too, and it's moving also. The footage is also moving, but that does not. Huh? Huh. This layer. It's quite long, no, longer than this composition. So okay, huh? Okay, with the right example, right? So this is it for today. Hmm. So, hmm.